What if Paul McCartney, one of the greatest songwriters of our time, once admitted he didn't like most of John Lennon's solo music after the Beatles split? As shocking as it sounds, McCartney made it clear back then. Only one of Lennon's post-Beatles songs truly impressed him. But was it personal, political, or part of the bitter feud that nearly destroyed their legendary friendship? After the Beatles' dramatic breakup, each of the Fab Four ventured into solo territory. Among them, Paul McCartney would go on to have the most prolific solo career, releasing 19 albums under his name and forming two music groups, Wings and the Firemen, both of which expanded his creative universe far beyond what he'd done with the band. John Lennon, too, wasted no time stepping into his post-Beatles chapter. His raw and emotionally charged debut album, John Lennon and Plastic Ono Band, dropped the same year the group dissolved. Then came Imagine in 1971, a cultural anthem that continues to resonate. But while the world was praising Lennon's new artistic direction, McCartney wasn't all that impressed. Speaking to the music magazine Sounds around that time, McCartney made a bold statement. Imagine was the only solo Lennon song he genuinely liked. The rest, he admitted, didn't do much for him. It wasn't just about taste, it reflected the deep personal rift between the two former bandmates. Both were openly critical of each other's new music, and tensions escalated quickly. Paul fired the first lyrical shot with Too Many People, a veiled jab at John. Lennon clapped back just as hard with the brutally direct How Do You Sleep? Their musical feud wasn't just about artistry, it was personal, sharp, and often political. In that same interview, Paul shared that he didn't care for Lennon's increasingly political themes. He admitted that with so many songs loaded with political messaging at the time, he'd often skim through them just once, more out of curiosity than enjoyment. Ironically, not long after, Paul would write and perform his own protest song, Give Ireland Back to the Irish, a direct response to the Bloody Sunday tragedy. It marked his first overtly political release, performed with Wings. Years later, Paul would continue dipping into socio-political commentary with songs like People Want Peace in 2018, inspired by the ongoing Israel-Palestine conflict. And while his stance on John's music may have softened over time, one thing remained consistent. He always held Imagine in high regard. In a BBC Radio 2 interview, Paul reaffirmed that it was still his favorite Lennon solo track, though he had also grown to appreciate others like Instant Karma and Beautiful Boy. Despite the bitter exchanges during the 1970s, the relationship between Paul and John eventually thawed. Before Lennon was tragically murdered in New York in 1980, the two had begun to reconnect, not just as legends, but as old friends trying to rediscover something that fame, time, and distance had strained. Author Ian Leslie, who explored their complex bond in his book, suggested that beneath all the public drama, the emotional connection never truly faded. According to him, they always respected each other as songwriters and missed what they once had. Though they never fully rekindled their old friendship, they had started moving in that direction, slowly and cautiously. Leslie explained that rebuilding that kind of closeness was never going to be easy. Legal battles, separate families, and living in different countries made that reunion nearly impossible. But he believed they were trying, and had John lived, there was a real possibility they might have collaborated again. Still, Leslie was clear, the magic they once shared couldn't be perfectly recreated. That level of creative chemistry, he argued, came from being young and constantly together, in studios, on tours, in hotel rooms, chasing dreams as one of the most iconic bands in history. And once that moment passed, it was gone.